Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Reacts, where today we got ourselves a track from an act named System Smile titled Gilded Cages. And if we switch over to here, I think we've also got a few shorts to check out as well. This is going to be a total of 3 songs, 3 videos. Looks like we got the first official video here. We're going to listen through it from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. We're also going to be providing song rankings, overall rankings for these tracks based on a set of various musical criteria, but for now, let's go, let's do it. What have we got? Welcome to the free world.
Welcome to the asylum. Or is it the world outside?
Interesting use of echoes there.
Look at the skyline, Gotham is burned in the wheels of the system. I'm solidly turning rich man into K-poor man in a cell who's a real demon in this concrete hell. You talk about freedom when you're tighten in a leash. The gap is a canyon, there's no middle piece. They silence the voice if it doesn't fit the mold. Another soul traded, another soul sold.
We're all just prisoners in a suit and tie, searching for the truth in a beautiful lie. Is it freedom if we're forced to choose?
Joker's the mirror, Batman's the mask. Who's got the answer? Don't even ask. The split in the streets,
Plain
the left and
transfer.
the right, divided by shadows, blinded by light. I look in the glass and I see the decay. I'm down in the words that I'm forced to say. Am I the hero or the one with the grin where there's justice to end and the madness begins?
Say you are free,
But the walls are getting closer.
can speak.
But the mic is turned off. Tear it all down!
Prisoners in a suit and tie, searching for the truth in a beautiful lie. Is it freedom if we're forced to choose?
I do quite like that one.
The joke's on you.
Freedom is just a different cell.
The joke's on me. Are we ever really free?
A nice reverb tail on that kick there. And so welcome to the mini conclusion of this first track, Gilded Cages there, before we check out again a few more shorts. In this section, in each of these post-track sections, I'm going to be providing an overall song analysis of everything from lyrics and vocals, all the way through to studio production, as well as any applicable constructive critique, and my final thoughts at the end of the video in the overall conclusion section. I want to also mention that I gave this track a 7.6 out of 10. I feel like a lot of stuff was done inherently quite well. But first of all, what do we think this track is about? I think this track is about someone kind of looking at the people who are supposedly in a point of perspective of being free. And it's kind of, you got the Joker and Batman element, and it's kind of laughing at the people who think they're free despite being well off because they're just in a different kind of prison. You know, they think that by having the right to choose, but is freedom an illusion, so to speak? Is there really such thing as independence when we're so interdependent? You know, how do we sort of like look at ourselves there? Does money allow us to kind of break away from the rat race, or by thinking money is that important, you know, we're trying to find truth in a beautiful lie, so to speak. So I think from that angle, it's an interesting sort of philosophical perspective to sort of interact with. I feel like vocally, there was enough variety between the different sort of clean vocal takes from the lady vocalist and the rap section with the break it all down shout and stuff, with the rap section being quite well articulated there. I like the flow in that part. I think rhythmically it was interesting. There's quite a lot going on within this 2 minutes. There's very little filler in there. We don't stay too long on one concept or another. We even had some sort of vocal chops near the end, which were kind of intriguing. But ultimately, I just think, you know, like the story was told in different ways. We had different vocal textures and timbres there. And with that reimagining of that lady's vocal takes and melody at the end, with the kind of cool response between the different vocalists, so as well occasionally, I just think ultimately that was quite good. Structurally, again, at 2 minutes, you had a mixture of verses and choruses and hooks and like breakdown sections and stuff. And we didn't need more than that. It's just within that 2 4 minute sweet spot where it's less than 2 minutes, we might be missing some important context or enough to sort of really understand or fill things out. But I feel like the audiovisual experience here kind of does enough to sort of help you understand it. So ultimately, I just feel, the transfers are clean. We had short verses and some short choruses there. We didn't stay on anything for too long. We were very quick to move on. We had a mixture of different synth, bass, and drum elements there that worked well, a mixture of quarters, eighths, and 16th notes rhythmically. We had some airy vocals on top of synth, sort of like pads and basses riding around the stereo field for effect. We just had a really well-handled bass, to be honest. There was a nice sense of dynamic range compositionally within it. And when we had that kind of more abrasive, kind of distorted bass in that verse section, I think it mirrored more the intensity of the vocals we were trying to accomplish there. There were some very gentle keys in those hook sections as well, which I kind of dig. I like the fact that they were ghostly like that. It works well alongside the reverb of the vocals. Having things kind of washed out at that minute 18 mark there was a nice sense of dynamic range within the track. I appreciate that things came down for a moment, despite the fact that we hadn't really gotten too used to how kind of intense it was beforehand. And I think ultimately that way that we sort of cut and chopped the vocals at that 1 minute 40 mark makes it almost a different lead instrument there. We had constant changes between leads. But yeah, honestly, structurally, layer-wise, there were adjustments there to make it more compelling. Very simple bass line and chord progression thematically, minor oriented. We weren't trying to be too much outside the diatonic or too extra there. Mainly working with triads. We might have worked with some sort of outside notes to that, maybe like a flat 9 or something like that occasionally on the keys, but ultimately that was just for tension. And yeah, honestly, I just feel like it was quite well fleshed out. I mean, like thematically, the use of the minor key makes sense with the subject matter. It almost kind of borders on nihilism a little bit, but like at the same time, I still think it's worth considering, and it's just, things are well connected without a note out of place. In terms of studio production, I think in general, things are pretty well leveled. There's like a bit of a resonance in the 1 to 4 kilohertz range there, a bit of a fuzz to it, but ultimately the vocals, bass, synths, pads, keys, etc., different vocal takes are present within the frequency spectrum. There's no weird resonances outside of what I mentioned. Music surrounds you in headphones, and synths moves around the sides of the stereo field, left and right side of the cans as well, which is kind of neat. There's some delay and reverb on some of the keys and vocals to make them sound a bit more sort of like wistful and ethereal. Nice and loud, bit of pumping, bus compression limiting is handled. And good start to proceedings. Good start to proceedings. So we then have the 1% rap here.
Tear it all down!
Prisoners in a suit and tie, searching for the truth in a beautiful lie. Is it freedom if we're forced to shoot?
Tear it all!
Okay, right. So it's looping through like a part of the main song. Okay, that's cool. So I think in that regard, I'd probably keep my ranking the same there. I think it would still be 7.6. Yeah, no, happy with 7.6 for that. That's cool. From what I can tell there, it says the wealth illusion, the elevator to the top is crowded, but for most, the speed of descent is the only thing that's guaranteed. 1% make it, 99% are just along for the ride. I get it. And so you see the CEO at the top there kind of laughing as he's the one on top and everyone else goes down. So effectively, I think what we're trying to sort of mention here within this part with the short is that effectively, no matter how successful you are, there can only be so many people that reach that ceiling there. So you just need to sort of be aware that there's just a high chance that you just kind of, life is not fair and it's not a meritocracy. I think like in isolation, this part, Break It All Down, almost seems a lot more aggressive than the rest of the track that we've had so far. You coming straight into that hook section. I think that's the kind of positive thing about shorts content, is that you have the capacity there to really just kind of isolate a specific theme and have that represented. And it's interesting because, especially in the way that it's portrayed, it's just kind of people who are kind of like, they lack a personality. They're just down in that elevator and they're just screwed. And I think that kind of maybe also alludes to people who give away themselves in order to become successful. They lose themselves in the process, and when they do reach the bottom, they're not sure how to pick themselves up again. They're maybe not even sure who they are. I think that then is kind of more meaningful in terms of how we approach the kind of, again, the Rave of the ghostly vocals and the lady in that part, and the break it all down as a nice foil to that, because it's kind of smashing through that facade there. It's almost like saying we're wanting to break it all down because we know how badly the system doesn't work, you know? It's almost like the ghostliness of those vocals alludes to the fact that people have kind of lost themselves. And that needs to change. Yeah, prisoners in suit and ties. Visceral. But yeah, honestly, again, because I think it's a part of the same song, the initial one, my comments on it are effectively the same as before. Just, it's nice to sort of focus on a part of the track and really appreciate it. And I actually do think you get quite a lot of the song within like the 15 seconds that you would within the 2 minutes. And then we have Secret Rave Under Liberty, track number 3 for today.
The skyline, Customers burn in the wheels of the system. I solidly turn a rich man into a poor man in a cell who's a real demon in this concrete hell. You talk about freedom when you're tightening a leash. The gap is a canyon, there's no middle piece. They silence the voice if it doesn't fit the mold. Another soul traded, another soul sold. Look at the skyline,
Okay, there we go. And so we've got the Rave and the Statue of Liberty there. Even in the land of the free, some parties are... How do I get rid of the... Even in the land of the free, some parties stay underground. Where liberty meets the forbidden, would you join the rave? That's an interesting thing. So effectively, it's just kind of partying as the world burns down, I suppose. It's almost like we're aware there that the people who are at the top, again, are the prisoners in suit and ties, and the people who are free are effectively the people who don't respond to the occasionally perverse incentives that the system offers for people to sort of be well behaved. I get that. I understand that. I think that makes sense. I think effectively highlighting another part of the track to kind of focus on here and really sort of is good, because you have more a focus on a solution to it potentially, as opposed to the previous short where we were discussing the position of the people, again, falling down the elevator shaft and only one person on top. You've got everyone else in that rave there kind of partying and just enjoying themselves in the meantime, because they understand what it means to actually be free, you know? And that's just another beauty of shorts. It's kind of crazy to be able to have a song and then have another 2 individual experiences from that, you know? Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is a different video experience to what we've had prior. And I think this is the benefit of the, you know, despite the controversy, this is the benefit of the situation there, where we can make these images there. You know, regardless of how you feel about it, the technology is kind of incredible, really. I think the rapping in this part sounds clean. It's nicely presented, nice and fresh and compact, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. And it shows, again, the rapping as opposed to the clean vocals and the crowd chant that we had in the prior part there. So you're showing different angles of the track as well, without expecting the person to commit to the actual track itself. I find it interesting that we're now making shorts of like a song though at the same time, because I think it just shows the focus of people and where they're sort of like approaching things now. It's now more important to kind of do micro content, because we can't trust that someone will have like the 2 to 3 minutes required to actually watch the song within itself, you know. But again, it's having different imagery as well within the video that provides a specific angle to it, so I understand that as well. But yeah, effectively, because it's the same song, you've got similar comments from the prior parts there, where the vocals are, again, the rapping focuses in nice contrast to the sung parts. You've got an interesting sort of like ambient and syncopated groove with the bass parts, with the hi-hats as well, the operatic vocals in the background soaring over top of it. It's very pretty sounding, but it's also kind of spooky at the same time. And I just think ultimately it's just very rhythmically stimulating. But yeah, effectively, again, that's my thoughts on these 3 videos and tracks, and we're going to talk about them more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named System Smile, titled Gilded Cages, as well as the 2 shorts that we had, 1% Trap, as well as the Secret Rave Under Liberty. In this section, I'm going to be providing an overall song analysis, as well as any applicable constructive critique, and then finally my general thoughts from a listener's perspective, bearing in mind the song analysis does include lyrical vocals all the way through to studio production. I should note that as per the initial song ranking, as per each of the mini conclusions, sections, because this is the same track, effectively what I've done here is kept the score the same, as there's not a lot of difference in terms of the music itself between the different elements there. I feel like generally they're of a similar quality. You just got a different visual experience with the video, but it's got an overall score of 7.6 out of 10, which I feel is quite a strong score. I don't often hand out those. But what do we think this track is about, especially after what we've discussed with the different angles there? I think effectively, if you include the shorts into the summary, it's not just that, again, wealth, is freedom real? It's basically discussing the fact that even if you are successful, you can't guarantee that, because it's not a meritocracy, you can't guarantee that you'll get to the top. You could just get screwed over regardless. Someone could have information you did, even if you did a better job than them. You could have different friends than they do, and that could affect things as well. I think as well, the example of sort of catering toward the Liberty Rave is an interesting alternate as well. And I think that, again, as I mentioned in those different sections, that's the strength of having a couple of different shorts as well as the main track, not only to sort of be more specific with different styles of vocals and sort of market them differently, but also to be able to provide more of a rounded view on what you're discussing in addition to the original part. Because you had the Joker and Batman aesthetic there. Joker being the chaos and Batman being the order bit, but like effectively you get to the point where you're kind of wondering whether or not chaos is actually what we need, simply because of the fact that sort of maintaining the status quo is kind of screwing over a lot of people in the first place, as per the elevator shaft falling down. I think outside of what the track is about though, I ultimately did like, again, most of these comments are going to be as per my original song analysis on the first track, but just to reiterate, I did really appreciate the variety of ways in which the lady vocalist communicated with her. It was the sung sort of clean vocals in the chorus sections, the operatic spooky kind of hallowing vocals in the back of the main sort of male rapped vocal parts in the different verse sections. The tear it all down kind of crowd chant was kind of dope as well. Going before into it, we had some more sort of ambient parts around the 1.5 minute mark as well before that final breakdown. And we had some interesting vocal choppy parts around the late stage of the track there, which kind of were articulated quite neatly. I tend to err on the side of caution when I am sort of like being quite sort of like analytical things about the quality of a performance, because I want to sort of make sure I'm not glazing, but I just think there was enough going on here to be able to appreciate it the whole 2 minutes through. At 2 minutes 05, it is quite short for a track. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's quite well fleshed out. There's different transfers, different verses, different choruses. We have it's very seamless in its transitions. We have some interesting lengths of sections there, like the choruses don't hang around too long. It's almost kind of attention deficit in its approach to substance. I think it shows a lack of trust that we think the listener will hang around too long unless we provide more stimulation in that regard, which I think nowadays with reduced attention spans is potentially a safe move depending on the kind of music you're making. I think ultimately the range of instruments we had, including different basses, different synth pads, keys, drum elements and such, were well sort of fleshed out. The drums themselves, we had a nice sort of range of kind of hi-hat, kick and snare grooves there, measuring through our quarters, eighths and sixteenths. They weren't an all the time thing because we wanted some things to float, and I feel that that's sensible. There are a range of different basses. There are some more sort of like trance-ish or kind of like low-key dubstep-ish kind of basses that were more sort of focused on the low end subs, but then in the verse sections we had a bit more sort of sizzle and substance to those. They had a bit of grit behind them, which sounded kind of neat. We also had some, again, as I mentioned, the keys in their mid to upper range there. They highlighted some of the octaves, some of the triads, some of the flat nines, etc., for a little bit of tension, a faux Phrygian. And the pads that we had on the sides, they went around the stereo field and fleshed out the midsection really well, even though the vocals were colorful enough, should I say, to be able to do that. No complaints whatsoever in terms of the instrumental performance. There was enough range and sort of adjustment with the layering and the way they were put forward to keep things compelling. There are also some moments where there was far less of anything. It was just a kind of washed out vocal part before the tear it all down part. And I think that's sensible as well. Just allowing a faux sort of, allowing dynamic range, both compositionally and production wise, was neat. Sometimes when I listen to music as well, I do feel like things are a bit too sort of like centered in the center of the stereo field. So I was thankful that things were sort of more fleshed out in this one. On the sides, it was good. And again, as I mentioned, in that sort of like song, sort of mini song analysis for the main track, it was just nice to have that alternate kind of chopped vocal lead at that late stage as an alternate lead, even though there were plenty of different lead elements to follow along with. The transitions between parts were seamless. I don't think there's a note out of place. Structurally, thematically, minor leaning. I think again, it's just that didn't necessarily change between the different shorts or main tracks, even though I feel the different angles approached were all sort of minor leaning. So I think the minor or Phrygian occasionally was great with the flat second or flat 9. I don't think that there was anything particularly to celebrate here. Even if you were looking forward to the chaos, it wasn't a happy time regardless. It just made sense with the chord progressions that we had. And I think it was repeated for a lot of the track there, even if there were like half bars of pause or a pregnant pause or something like that. Studio recording, mixing, and mastering there was a bit of a resonant frequency within the 1 to 4, a bit of fuzz, but it wasn't too dominant within this. I feel like the vocals, keys, synth, space, and drums came through clearly. Things were nicely centered around the stereo field. Music around you in headphones and sometimes went left to right. It was well fleshed out. Things were nicely balanced. Like the different delay and reverb takes on the vocals as well were great. I liked that the rap parts were a bit drier, but there was more sort of a lush tone to the lady vocals. And again, the chopping was kind of neat when it came at the end. Nice and loud bit of pumping bus compression limiting is handled. No real applicable constructive critique apart from again the slight resonance in the 1.4 kHz range. Ultimately, from a final general listener's perspective, I'm going to be thinking about this one afterwards. I understand the economics of again the scarcity of the ability to succeed in life and the fact that not everyone is going to be able to achieve the American dream. I think that people discussing this brings it to mind for those that maybe need to be sobered up a little bit, so I appreciate it being put forward. I think it's nice to explore different angles with different audiovisual experiences. But thank you very much for watching my review of this track from an Acname System Smile titled Gilded Cages, as well as the 1% Trap and Secret Rave Under Liberty. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via the various social medias and YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as need to help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SB Reacts. Spiderhands out.